was a nice
Yeah,
little
let's
warm up, kind of like let's get it going.
That was the prologue. Let's go.
I know. Yeah. So Beni,
Yes,
finally,
sir.
we're finally having to do this like craft talk chat. I've been meaning to like get a hold of you.
I'm so honored. I'm going to tell you, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just so honored because like I respect and appreciate so much this space. And we've had these conversations a lot of like, some of us have the blessing and the privilege that in our creative lane, that's our full-time thing, right? Others of us, I would say, are bivocational, right? We have the air quote, the day job, the 9 to 5, and then have to find time to use our creative energies and express it in the ways we do. And so I've never felt, to be honest, the imposter syndrome of like, I never thought I'd be a guest on this because I was like, I'm not really working and living in that space. I know. Because, and that's not like a humble brag or nothing. It's just, I think many creatives, we battle that imposter syndrome maybe. And so I'm like, do I have anything of worth to even share? Right. And so, and I was totally okay with that. Like if that was what it is, I was totally fine being somebody receiving all the gems that in your interviews and applying it to my life, however I apply it, because it doesn't only apply to my art. There's things you take and apply to your way of life and living, So I was like, you texted me, I was like, did he mean to send this to me?
To
But
be
no,
honest,
I appreciate it.
I feel the same way all the time because I am surrounded with really creative folks where creativity happens to be their jobs and their career at full time. You and I have this commonality in that like we both have day jobs. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like a deeper respect from me that like you have a day job, you have a kid, you have a family, and you're still trying to do creative things with your life. As we speak, we are literally on our lunch break.
Yeah.
Come on, that's gangster. Come on. That's that's amazing. I mean, it just goes to show that even on our lunch break, we're still doing it. Like we're still doing it, and that's what matters. And it, as impostery as it sounds sometimes, there's still a lot to be said with someone who just keeps going with it.
Yeah, and for me, I think I've had to learn I'm going to call what we have a gift, right? You understanding my worldview and where I believe everything comes from.
Yeah.
I was created to create. And I've had this conversation with many people. When they hear the word creative, the assumption is always tied to art, right? Like that's the sexy, he's creative because he paints, he does music, he's an actor, he's filmed this, that, or whoever you're talking about. But creativity, that's to me putting creativity in a box that says it only fits in this box of art. Everyone's creative. It's just what tools are they being creative? So Vita, my wife for the viewers, she'll always say, I'm not that creative. I'm like, you're super creative. It just doesn't manifest itself in the way it does for me. Think about all the life hacks you see online of people like this life hack and this, that. You got to be creative to come up with some of those things.
It takes an immense amount of creativity to...
Right. How do you raise your children? Some people, I saw this thing that I thought it was a creative way. These parents had 2 siblings fighting, and they were fighting all the time. So the parent created this extra large T-shirt that they both had to wear. So both of their heads are through the one hole, and they had to walk around in that T-shirt close until they calm down, resolve, whatever. That's a creative way to be like, look, you can't escape the problem. Right. That's what I gathered from that. Confront your issues. Do it with love, and you're going to be upset, but you're eventually going to get to a place. And, eventually in that story, I guess the kids were joking around and whatever. And then they got to take the T-shirt off and go about their business. But, I think to me, that was a creative way for the parent to teach a life lesson. That's creativity in being a parent. Had nothing to do with art, So I think if everybody would look at their life and see themselves through the lens of I am creative. What is the thing I'm creative at or creative with? Yeah. I just encourage people that I know and meet, and then they're always like, I'm not creative. I'm like, yes, you are. You just got to figure out what that thing is, and it frees you then to be like, okay, cool. And you just have this slightly changed worldview on who you are and what you bring to the table to humanity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because that was the whole like ethos of craft talk. When I thought of this name, this word craft, right, is
Right.
like synonymous with like the potter and sculptor and like mastering your craft in the traditional sense. But
Right.
my whole thing was like, I think there's like, in the same way that there's creativity in everything and everyone, there's a craft to like the littlest things. And that always interested me. So it's like, I would like to know from you, like your creativity, like, have you always thought this way? I guess, can we start with like, where did your like creative journey start? Because I know you've been through a lot of disciplines of like film and music and all that. So like, where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, I think, and this is like a revelation I've had in recent years. If somebody had to ask me, like, what is my creativity? Like, what is my thing? My answer would be is I'm a storyteller. And then people go, well, why are you a data analyst for your data? What's that? I was like, how's that? Well, I use the data to tell a story, right? Like, statistics, all that is storytelling. Why is sports into such big with statistics? Well, this percentage of time when they play this team in this field, they're telling a story. They're giving a narrative. It's just a different tool and means by which I'm telling a story. But it started for me, definitely the earliest memory I have. I was always into television and watching, consuming things. And I was definitely that annoying person that I'd watch the movie one time and then be quoting it already. It just stuck, and story. And it was escapism for me, right? Like growing up where I grew up, projects environment, not too much money. I'd see these families on TV. They didn't look like me, but I was like, oh, that's what a family is. My parents split when I was young. And then I remember distinctly starting to write stories in class, right? When you're learning, I think second grade, maybe was my first like storytelling homework, right? By that time, you've learned to your letters and all that. And so they try to teach you different things in English class. And I remember writing a story that actually it was in fourth grade that I was just really hype about. And we have to write like a 1-page story. And mine was like 4, 5, 6 pages long. And I wrote this whole narrative and like it had a tag at the end of like, you didn't know,
You
but
already
like
had
there was two.
the 3-act structure.
I had the 3-act
Fourth grade.
structure, like it was a story about me and my cousin and some scary thing happened. And at the end of the story, my cousin butts in and he goes, all right, that's your version, but this is my version. And then like my character was like, no, we don't have time for that. The end, Yeah. And I gave that to my fourth grade teacher. And what was, and I just found this love of words. And I remember coming back already. I had graduated high school. I was in college and I visited this teacher again. And she pulled out my story. She still had it after all those years. And she was like, this was one of my favorite things, this, that. And that encouraged me at that time because I was like, oh my, and it wasn't an Oscar-winning film or anything, but she recognized in me something and she would encourage it. She would continue to encourage that. And so then... so my storytelling there. And then, hip hop, I grew up, I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid, so when hip hop started really taking off commercially, Biggie, Nas, 90s, right? At 14 years old, so it's around 97. Honestly, I'm be 100%. The first rap I ever wrote was to impress a girl.
Okay. Hey.
Didn't work. She didn't fall in love with me, but I fell in love with hip hop. You know what I mean? Bars. And so I just kept working at the craft. And early on, I made the decision. I was like, I don't want to be the writer that only rhymes, cuss words, because that's easy. So I started reading the dictionary just to learn words and then try to apply them in everyday context to the point where, in school, I would just be using them in conversation because I was like, the best way to learn something is to like immediately apply it. And then it takes root, And so I'd be using words and friends and stuff look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I read the dictionary just because I want to be a little bit more verbose and blah, blah.
Verbose,
like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. I just want
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
esoteric
yeah.
words.
Yeah,
Like, what is that?
exactly. And you know, it probably came off super pretentious because they're like, "You're from Pembroke," which in our area that's like projects. Like, you're from the
Okay.
poor area town. Like, who you trying to be? If anything, it motivated me more to be like, no, I'm just being who I am, a lover of words. You know, I'm a logophile. I don't know. What do you want to call it? But I love words and the use of it. And I find the importance of words in communication, right? So, you know, so mainly I was a writer, poetry, hip hop, which the way I would write, I always told stories in my writing, hip hop wise. You know, I never rapped about what I wasn't living. You weren't going to find songs about me toting guns and this and that and the other thing. That just wasn't my life. So I took the point of view and the perspective of myself as an artist to be the storyteller, whether it was true stories or if I'm playing characters or creating these narratives, which naturally led to, you know, my interest in film and script. So I went to school for theater. I actually went to college for a theater
Okay.
degree in acting and directing. And so just another space, another medium of storytelling. You know, whether I was the writer, whether I was the actor who had to imbue, like represent a certain character, that although the words are written in a script, it's your job to fill in the story, right? What happened to this character before this particular story starts? What's going on in this character's mind? What happens to the character after the story ends? You know, so for me, I always made it a practice to write out that story. Where was he born? What led to this decision making, to this moment in time, like all that kind of thing. So that's again where it started all and led to where I'm
Yeah,
at
I
today.
think that's interesting with the reading the dictionary. That's wild that at that age you were just like, I'm going to read the dictionary. I found with myself, like, I almost want to like do something in similar vein of kind of like reading the thesaurus, because it's the words that you've learned and have accumulated, the more expansive it is. It seems like it's more tools to be able to communicate different things, but the same things. But like, how do I explain this? Where it's like there's a certain concept that you want to communicate, and you want to do it in a certain tone, but this specific word doesn't work for it. So now you have to, it's like a puzzle in that, like, okay, well, let me try this word. Does that give more effect? And you having the list of words that you can use for this specific moment it's just like you're expanding your toolbox. When you don't have all of the words available to you, and I'm sure in hip hop, you're like, where do I go from here? Because I don't know what's out there. I find it with myself, especially when I ask people questions or I interview them. When I've watched these videos back, you hear yourself going, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, that's interesting." At a certain point, you're like, "Why do I keep saying that word interesting? Like, can I change it up a little bit?" Like, it's getting annoying for myself. So, yeah, having to expand that is like really crucial. But I imagine with storytelling, not just in words, but in like story arcs and paths. Do you see story as like one singular line, or do you see like multiverse level pathways that you can go?
Yeah. So if you were to visit my brain,
Next stop.
it's definitely, you know, this can go so many ways, right? Like there's so many ways a story can go, because I like the stories I like to tell, or at least even if I'm writing, like if I'm trying to write a sci-fi or whatever genre, to me it's always important of what's the human element of this. I'm very big character driven in story versus what's happening, because I believe the most interesting types of stories are ones when you can look at it and just connect and relate to a character, because we're human, right? Like for me, the human element of any story is what matters. So yes, the story can go left, right, center, back, a couple of steps forward, because that's life. Like my goal is to represent life, whether it's metaphorically, literally, you know, in the story. But yeah, there's the choices you got to make. And I think that's what life is. Life is just a series of choices you make. And one of the things that I'm learning about myself, and I've struggled just in my personal life, was the fear of making the wrong choice, right? So I think that there are very clear instances where there is a right and a wrong choice. There's very clear moments of that. But I feel like life is made up of a bunch of small choices that in the moment aren't that significant, whether you go left or right, but can have a domino effect down the line. Like if we all here just took a moment and you're like, how did I end up here, where I am today in my life? It's a series of choices that were made, most by you, some made for you. So when I'm writing a story or crafting the story, I try to put myself in that place of the character, because the character will tell you the story being told, at least my approach on it. If I can clearly define this character, and I don't have to write his whole history or her whole history, I just have to understand why they make decisions, how they make decisions and choices. And then the story kind of unfolds itself sometimes. And then other times you're just like, I want to make an action movie. But even in that, what's the story? I can just have a bunch of people shooting each other and fighting. Like,
it's always grounded on like that reality of the choices and where does it go now? Now what? After this, then this happens. Okay. And
life is choices. So if I'm representing that in my art, I want to represent life, then I have to provide choices.
Right. So say you're writing a story and we're in Beni's brain and the multiverse is happening and like all of these different scenarios could be happening. How do you discern which way you're going to go? Is it like a gut feeling or is it like you have an end in mind and then you just try to fill in those gaps?
Yeah, and I wish I could say I had the perfect formula, but I think each project takes a life of its own. But often I know where I want to end. And so it gives me a little more structure. Even when I was writing songs and stuff, like if you look at my notebook, I don't write linearly in the bars, like beginning to end. Like I'll write a little chunk in the corner, I'll write another chunk up here. What's so crazy is, so like if you've seen 8 Mile, there's a scene where Eminem's on the bus and he's hearing like the music and he's crafting the song and he's hearing the echoes of like, lose yourself, lose yourself. It's not the full song, but like I felt like that was such a perfect representation of what it's like to write. But he does that on his paper. They show a shot and he's not writing on the lines. He's got like little pieces here and there and all over the place. And I was like, yo, I mean, I'm nowhere near Eminem level. That's GOAT status. But just the fact that his thought process was similar, I found interesting, but that's the best I can represent it. So if I know where I want to end, like that last bar, or where do I want the story to end, it makes it easier to get there. Now, the choices you make along the way, you have to start to figure out as you're on the road to that. And I'm going to be real. There's times where you go, as you're making those choices, you go, that ending isn't as good. Like it's locking me in. So I got to throw it out the way, because these series of choices I was making along the way are a little bit more interesting. Let's see where that goes, you know? So sometimes you see the target and you're shooting at it to hit the target. Other times you shoot an arrow in the dark and wherever it lands, you draw the target around it, where it landed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how do you finish it? Is it one of those things like if you didn't have a deadline, it would just keep going forever and ever?
Honestly, absolutely. I've had to learn.
So it's the deadline that makes it a complete
deadline. Yeah, because one of the things is, and especially coming with a theater background, technically the show's never done. Like we would get notes after every performance, like improve this, do this, you know what I mean? So until the last performance, the show is continually evolving. There's certain things you have to do because you have the lighting and the sounds and all that, but you're continually finding this character, and that's the live element. But yeah, the deadlines, honestly, because part of my nature is that I'm working on is the perfectionist aspect. Like it's not perfect. It's not exactly. But, you know, I know you've read this recently, but I've read The Creative Act, Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
So many gems in that book. And one of the things he says is you just got to finish it. Like it is what it is. Like you can't get, like not everything is your magnum opus, you know?
That's hard
It's hard to accept because every time you create some piece of work and art that's going to be consumed by others, you want it to be that life-changing thing for somebody. You want it to be the thing that has impact. Because you put so much of yourself into it. You want it to mean something to other people and not just yourself. I want my existence on this earth and the things I put into this world to have a positive impact for humanity. And right. I know that sounds idealistic, but humanity doesn't have to mean the whole 8 billion people on the planet. I think we're up to 8 billion at this point, or maybe after this podcast we will be. But also our immediate world, right? Like my daughter, my wife, my friends, my loved ones. If I'm putting something out into this world, I want it to be of benefit to them. I want it to edify their lives too, And so I've just had to accept, like, sometimes it's what it is. Yeah, and not everything's going to be a hit.
It's better out in the world than like sitting in your notebook or hard drive, just collecting dust.
So like it's better out there than not at all. And one of the things I had to fight is like I always want everything to be great. And there was this speaker, his name is Richard Allen Farmer. I remember him doing a talk to like a bunch of preachers and speakers and motivational speakers on how to really craft good speeches. And one of the things he said that stuck with me, but it's become too much of a dogma that I've had to fight against, is he says, good is the enemy of great. Where he's saying, like, he's like, oh, this is good. Like, I wrote this speech. It's good. He's like, yeah, but is it great? Did you take the time to really put in the work to make the best thing it could ever be? And so I get that concept and I agree with it. But sometimes, let me just be real. Sometimes there's no time for great. Good has to be good enough. And, good is still good. Like, a C same is good. An A is great.
Like it's same with us in like as people. I think I don't know how you grew up, but for me, it's like a lot of my self-worth. Not to get too deep, but my self-worth was attached to being excellent at music, at art, at blah blah blah, and that's what got me like feeling like that was my acceptance. But it's like, okay, if I put out work that wasn't quote unquote great and it was good, I'm still good enough. Like you said, it's like that's what we all need to take away from it, in that like it's all good.
Here's the thing, and you never know, like your good can be great to someone else.
True.
Right? Like there's your favorite song, your favorite movie is your particular favorite movie for whatever reason. And the people that produced that might have been like, oh, that wasn't my best work, but it hit you different. Because of where you're at in that space and time. And that's exactly the thing you needed in that moment in life. And it's so tied to a core memory or it help you. So for example, I'm gonna put this out there. My favorite movie is a Goofy movie, the Disney movie, Goofy movie, right?
Dope. Yeah.
Ridiculous soundtrack, great story. If you ask people their favorite Disney movie, a lot of people would not pick a Goofy movie. They'd be like, oh, it was a good movie. But they'll be like, it's, Aladdin, it's this, it's that, the other thing. Nothing wrong with those movies. But for me, that was a great movie because of the place I was in my life. I saw that one in theaters. So for your audience, I'm letting them know, I'm 40. I ain't ashamed of it. I made it to 40 years old. I have a lot of people I know that didn't even get here, So I'm thankful for every day and every year. Hey. But I saw that movie in theaters. And my parents got divorced when I was 5. My father left. And what's a Goofy movie about? It's a relationship between a father and son.
Yeah.
So that lack in my life, seeing that movie, and at my creative side, that soundtrack is ridiculous. To this day, I'll put it up against any soundtrack of a movie. Yeah. But it had this different impact on me because I saw something. I told you earlier in the conversation, like I would watch films and movies and see the things I didn't have in my life and escape to that place. So in my mind, I escaped to a place of like, even though you see this father and son and they're clashing and they're not understanding one another and they're each trying to, the dad's trying to connect with the kid in his way, but he's like, you don't understand me, this, that. And at the end, it comes to the point where he understands, and in the beginning, it starts this way. Max, right? It's a dream. And there's Roxanne, the girl he loves. And all of a sudden he morphs into Goofy. And that's like his biggest nightmare.
Yeah. I turned into my father. Yeah.
I turned into my father. as a kid whose father left, and my biggest motivator of how to be a man was not be like my father. So that first opening scene before the even movie title came on screen immediately got me,
Gripped. Yeah.
you know, right away.
Wow.
Like I was like, I understand that. As a 10-year-old, I get that, you know? And so
To the point
the
where you're
creators
40
of that
years
mo-
old. You're 40 years old and saying one of the greatest masterpieces of cinema history is the Goofy movie. I think that's amazing.
Goofy movie.
Because that's what matters to you as an individual.
Right.
And I think,
And they told a human story with dogs, but
yeah.
You know,
I did
so
not
that's where-
expect- Yeah, I did not expect to get this, like, that's, wow.
But to the creators of that movie, I'm sure they were proud of it, and I'm sure they, you know, they thought, okay, but I promise you, they weren't like, oh, this is a Disney classic or this is a masterpiece or this. But to this little kid from Pembroke in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, at 10 years old, that was the greatest thing I ever saw on screen.
Wow.
You know, and to this day, like when I got Disney Plus, the first thing I watched was a Goofy movie. I've owned the Goofy movie like 3 or 4 times because I've lent it to friends and they never gave it back. And
Yeah.
my daughter watches it and she loves the songs and we sing them together. And now I get to be, when I first saw the movie, I was Max. Now I'm Goofy. And I watched the movie different, seeing a father who truly loves their child and just wants to connect with them and be a good father. And like one of my motivators, and whether this is good or bad, you know, and my relationship with my father now, it's here and there, it's touchy. Like he's my dad. I don't hate him. It's nothing like that. We're not as close, but that's just circumstances of life, right? But I love being a dad. I love it so much. And to see her, and you know me, you know, we're blessed to have you in our life in that way. You know, she did her dance recital. It was her first time ever on stage. You know, she's 5 years old. And I remember her coming off the stage. And I was like, a lot of kids, they get up there, they see the crowd of 100, 200 people, and they're like, frozen. But she was living her best life up there. She got off the stage and she did her thing. And she comes off and goes like, Daddy, I really enjoyed that. I loved being on stage. That was fun. And I was like, so proud for multiple reasons. One, that she like conquered a fear a little bit.
Yeah.
As Vida took her on stage, right before she got on stage, Vida said she heard her say, I'm really nervous. But then like talking to herself, Mila, and was like, I'm really nervous. She was like, let me just breathe. Okay, let's do this. And I was like, these are the things we've taught her, you know, of like breathe. Like being brave doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you do the thing in spite of the fear. Like you overcome the fear. That's what being brave is. And we do her affirmations with her. And just to see those things like actually manifest themselves in her life and her to apply those things, just makes me proud to be a dad and just makes it that much more fun. And, you know, relating back to the movie of a Goofy movie, all he just wanted to do was, you know, connect with his son and give him what he had as a kid. In my case, is to give her what I didn't have as a kid, be the dad I wish I had. And, you know, and so getting back to the good versus great, I think it does a disservice to the world and those around us if we do have this thing inside of us that we want to put out, and out of fear or out of hesitation that it's not going to be great or whatever, we don't put it out in the world. We're doing it to service not just to the world. There may be that little boy out there, the little girl out there that needed to hear this thing, and maybe they're the one person in the world that this is the favorite thing, and everybody else is like, yo, that's hot garbage. But for that one person, it's worth it.
Yeah. Wow. And I love how like the movie itself also transforms based on what season of life you're in.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about good art, is that it'll meet you where you are.
Yeah.
Or it'll remind you of a time where you were. Oh, that's gold, man. That's like such great like wisdom. Can you share a little bit about like, so what's SanRico, right?
SanRico Film and Music.
And what's your title within that group?
So yeah, within that group, I get to serve as the creative director.
Okay.
And it's great. You know, what's great about it is that everyone on that team, the reason SanRico Film and Music is because we all come from those worlds. So it's like this amalgamation of both worlds, because many times production companies, some will like focus on video, some will or film, some will focus just on music for the underscoring. Like we have been positioned in our life experiences, whatever, that we could do both. And so when we approach projects and whatever we do, we come from both we're developing the music and the film and the story, whatever we're putting out at the same time. So the music's not an afterthought. It's not like, here's the film, put music to it. Or I have this song idea. All right, now let's create a music video. It all happens in tandem. It happens side by side, which is a very unique thing we get to do and a fun thing we get to do because, again, to us, the film nor the music is the most important thing in the works that we're putting out. They're equal, Okay. So if I'm writing a film, the music is another character in that film. It's not just, ambience, and it serves that purpose as well, of course. But if you listen to the music, it will foreshadow things for you as well. That's going to happen in a film if you tune your ear in that way. So a few of the projects we're working on. So as creative director, we touch a lot of different things. We have different projects in the works. One of the main projects we've worked on recently, production-wise, we were the production company for a show called Salud Ben, or we are. It's Health 24/7. It's a medical kind of show for our community. One of the things during COVID especially, there was so much misinformation going on for everyone, right? We didn't know what to trust. It was all new, right? So we were learning as we go. But especially we found in our Spanish community, there was like way bad information being spread. Like they just didn't have the resources and where to go. So it was birthed from that. And so we interview health specialists, but the 24/7 part of the health is like not just going to the doctor for an appointment. We have segments that focus on health at home. So like whether it's exercise or things like that. We have a nutrition segment. We have fun facts. We have like called Sabía Usted, Did You Know? And it's a bunch of fun facts about things like when babies first born and cry, they don't have tears, things crazy like that.
What?
Or like, well, yeah. Like, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
They don't develop like tear ducts until a certain age or something?
Yeah, it's like till a certain point, Yeah, maybe something along those lines. I don't remember the actual fact, but yeah, things like that. So just little fun facts. When was the first ambulance? And, the eye can distinguish millions of colors, all types of things like that. So that's a project which is a continuous one for which we're the production company. And our second season is coming out soon. It'll be on YouTube and Telemundo Orlando. We were able to get Telemundo Orlando to reach. And our goal there is for it to be more than a show. It's really a multimedia platform to where we can get this information out to the world.
As the creative director, that's such an official title. What does that mean?
I know.
Like, what does that entail for you? What does it mean for you? Like, what do you think you're responsible for?
My responsibility as creative director in this company, because you're right, in different companies, it can mean different things. For our team, the main responsibility of the creative director is to make sure I'm bringing to the table who I am, which is storyteller, right? So to come with the creative ideas, whether it's in brainstorming sessions, what's this project going to be about? Sometimes it's me writing it myself, doing the work, just having that eye of my big thing with creativity. My goal always is there a new way to say this? Is there a new way to present this? Because all stories at the root of it, like you can go study like story structure. What is a story? A hero, obstacle, overcoming that obstacle is changed by the experience, different definitions of that. That's all, every story you can watch a movie and see like that's the basic thing, but they present it in a new way. So I would say my overall responsibility, because we get into nitty gritty ones, is to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on that, on the story. Are we presenting it in a new way, in a fresh way? And are we presenting it in an authentic way? So our team is made up of a bunch of folks. Some people use the term third culture. So for example, I'm Puerto Rican. I was born in the United States, but I'm Puerto Rican. I wasn't born on the island. So growing up, for those that were born on the island, I wasn't really a Puerto Rican. For the people here in the States, well, you're American. Like if I'm saying, where are you from? I go, oh, I'm from Pennsylvania. They'll know. But like, no, like, where are you from? What ethnicity, right? So I constantly lived between these two worlds. And it used to be that you'd write like Hispanic-American, Asian-American, that little hyphen. So I call it the hyphen, living in the hyphen, because I wasn't this, I wasn't that, I lived in that hyphen. And so our team is made up of that. And another term some folks use for that is third culture, right? And so a lot of the stories we tell or things like that are going to represent that third culture life, that hyphen lifestyle. And it's not going to be so blatant. We're very also intentional about that. We don't want to be preachy. The theme will be there, and if you catch it, you catch it. At the end of the day, we want it to be entertaining. And so our team is made up of the hyphens, of these third culture folks. So our art will represent that whatever we put into the world, because that's the stories we can tell.
You were built for this role. Especially, you and I have had plenty of conversations, but and I'm sure you've said some of these stories to me before, but even just going through the list of you reading the dictionary and, Goofy movie being your favorite movie and how it informs how you tell stories, it seems like you're able to grab from creative, personal, mental, physical, all of the skills that you have, you're able to put in this role as a creative director. You're able to pull from your personal experiences or pull from even your analytical side. I'm sure helps you with the story or all that. It seems like the perfect storm in that position. It almost, it's just like you were meant to be there type of thing.
Yeah. And what's cool is it wasn't something I aspired to. I wasn't go up one day one day I want to be a creative director. It's definitely a thing that I was just blessed. One of the owners of the company, his name is Cuba Fernandez. He and I have known each other for many years, worked together sometimes, other times just maintain a friendship. And if he has a superpower, we always joke we're like the Avengers and he's the Nick Fury, because he has such a great skill. Yeah, he has such a great skill of recognizing in others things they don't recognize in themselves sometimes. And that's his superpower, and he recognized this in me. And as we worked on some things together, he was just like, no, this is the role for you. This is where it would be most beneficial to have you in this role, because this is who you are, and he's seen me since the early stages of the hip hop. So he's, we've been friends really almost half my life at this point. And so, and again, initially I had the imposter syndrome of no, what do you mean? Having to understand that it's not what a creative director is on paper. It's what is the creative director for this company, for this team? What does that entail? What does that require? And at the end of the day, it came down to, I just need you to be you.
I wanted to share something before we go. It's a really important video for me that it always encourages me because it's an interesting concept about creativity and how we work. So this video is called The Gap. Let me pull it up real quick.
Felt convicted. That's good. Share that link with me, because there's so much there that I want to revisit and digest.
Definitely. Yeah. I think we've had plenty of conversations, and we both know that we both overthink a lot of things. So watching that sometimes helps me kind of feel everybody goes through this. Everybody goes through this moment of but it's not good enough. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, why is it not good enough? It's because your tastes are always going to be ahead of you. If you're doing it right, your taste, you want it to be striving for something better. I would argue that I never want my taste to ever just stay in one spot and then I always meet it. I always want it to grow and expand and be refined and be more sophisticated in a certain way. I don't know. It's just really encouraging that we always have this gap that we can get close. Sometimes we're really far away. Sometimes we meet it, but it's this spring.
Yeah, and I think, just quick thoughts on it is, in business they use this term, the North Star. You should always be reaching for the North Star. You're never going to reach it, but you always got to strive for it. And so you got to keep pushing. And as human beings, one of the, I'm going to just say it this way because we're kids, we didn't know, but in the yearbook, one of the most written things in yearbooks, I would say, I have no data on this is just my observation, that is one of the dumbest statements, if you live by it, is never change.
Yeah.
We should evolve. We should change. I shouldn't be the same 17-year-old thoughts, actions.
That'd be weird.
With my art. That'd be weird with my art.
Yeah.
Even, right? The songs I was writing then, the stories I was writing then, 23 years later, I should be a different person.
Yeah, your tastes
right?
have
And
changed.
your tastes
Yeah.
change, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't got the same energy I used to have to, or the same patience I have. And I think part of that is just learning more who you are and learning about the things that bring you peace and the things that don't, and choosing peace over things that are not peaceful, choosing to understand I was always a big people pleaser. I don't have to please anybody else really. You know, I have to
Yeah.
take care of me and mine. Like that's the focus. And even to belief, you know, one of the revelations I have recently is like, you know, a lot of times as kids you're driven by people believe in you. So like you were saying about being excellent in music, that was kind of an identity put on you. I was the kid with straight A's in my family. I was the one that was going to go to college, and like
Yeah.
that was put on me. So that stressed me and pushed me.
Carrying
That was
the
an
weight,
external motivator carrying that weight. And if you watch In the Heights, the daughter that comes back from college and dropped out, that song, I wept because I never felt so
It
seen.
just yeah, it just resonated. Yeah.
It resonated so deep. And Vita, I remember watching it with me, looks at me and goes, because she had seen the movie in Nancy, and watching it when I was watching, she's like, I just got it. You know what I mean? She's like, I
Yeah.
just got it watching you. But I think belief. So it's nice when others believe in you. It is. It feels good. It's motivating. But at the end of the day, their belief doesn't matter in you. Their belief in you doesn't matter. Your belief in you matters. You have to believe in you. For Mila, I'm training her in that now because she'll say, Daddy, are you proud of me? And I say, yeah, but are you proud of you? And I'll tell her sometimes, you know, when she's trying to do something, I was like, kiddo, I believe you can do this. Do you believe you can do this? Because at the end of the day, my belief isn't going to accomplish the thing for you. Right?
Yeah.
It's your own belief. At the end of the day, that's what matters.
I need to work on that so bad.
Yeah.
People believe in me so much more than I believe in what
Right.
my capabilities are. And I downplay myself because just in case I fail, then I knew
Yeah.
that, well, you know, see, that's why I was doubting
It's a
myself.
safety net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like everybody else believes in me so much more. And in some ways it feels like pressure, kind of like in what you're
Yeah.
saying. It feels like pressure because
It-
they think you're going to do this like amazing thing all the time.
Right.
But if I change my focus to like, do I believe in myself? And if it's a yes,
Right.
then that's all that really matters right now in what we're trying to execute.
Right. Right. And that thing, I feel it. And this is like a revelation I've had recently, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm very much how you are, like the expectation of others, people pleaser, all that, and not wanting to let people down. And I was letting their expectations become my motivator. And that can't be the case, right? Like it has to
Yeah.
be from within. That motivation has to come from within. And so, you know, their belief, their expectation in many ways became a shackle.
Rather
you
than
know?
like the
It's
cherry
like-
on top.
Right, right.
Like it should be a
held me
good thing that
back.
people believe in you. But
Yeah.
once it's a shackle, it's like it shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
Right. And that's not their fault, it's mine. It's my perspective of their belief. They genuinely are like, I see this in you. I know you can do this, you know, but then I tied my worth to their belief. So I said, in their eyes, my value to them in their eyes is based on their level of belief and expectation of me. So if I don't accomplish that thing, my value
means-
diminishes to them.
Right.
Right. I'm less than to them if I don't accomplish the thing they're believing me to achieve.
Which
And
is like
if I were
the
to talk
furthest
to
from
them,
the truth. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that's the story I told myself because I'm a storyteller.
Right.
So I can tell myself that story really well. But
Yeah.
if I were to sit down and ask them, they're like, no, I don't care if you do it or not. Like, I love you for who you are, not
Yeah.
for what you do, you know, or accomplish. I want that for you, but that's not going to be the determining factor of my love for you, you know?
Yeah.
But we put that pressure on ourselves. So I've been slowly breaking free of that, you know,
Yeah.
and just being at the end of the day, do I believe I can do the thing? And if I believe I was put on this earth to be who I am, the storyteller, then I have to believe in it.
Do I charge my insurance for this therapy session? Because I mean,
Pro
I don't
bono,
think
pro bono. These conversations are life-giving to me.
Yes.
You know,
It energizes me
because
too. Yeah.
energizes me, and it's not wholly dependent on me. Like I know I'm the guest, but
Yeah.
I'm talking to my friend, you know, and just like those late night conversations we would have here in the foyer for another hour after we had a conversation of 2 hours, like it just, you know, just continues. So this conversation's not ending. It's just to be continued, you know?
Yeah. Perfect. Dude, all right, man. Well, I'll let you go.
All right, man. Yeah,
Thanks
appreciate
again.
you, man. Again, thank you.
No problem. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.